Hey everybody, it's been a while. Metal Gear Solid Delta came out and I've just been taking it to the dome. But I wanted to make another discussion video. I had a lot of ideas in that last one, but upon further thinking, it's not incredibly likely that any of them would make it to a remake. I did have a new idea recently though, and that's kind of what I would like to talk about later. But first off, I think it's safe to say that Konami pulled off Delta Snake Eater, whatever we're calling it. Performance issues may turn you off, but hopefully that's the only thing that is the growing pains for this team. I'm willing to give them a few passes. At least the game wasn't a disaster at launch for a vast majority of people. I actually don't think I've heard any super bad stories. And everything was exactly as advertised. The upgraded CQC animations they're nice and cinematic.
Let's see what you're made of.
It's the Snake Eater that we remember with more visual flair and better graphics and a shoulder aim. Thank the Lord. I am looking forward to see what new ideas come from this Metal Gear team now that there is renewed interest for Metal Gear Solid. Snake Eater was always amazing, but the attention to detail was pretty spot on, I think, so they gained a ton of goodwill from that alone. As long as they don't hold the IP back in terms of attention and investment, we could be looking forward to much more than just remakes. They already are playing with that idea, so perfect segue. They got Fox Hunt, which isn't MGO. They made that very clear. Fox Hunt showed up at Tokyo Game Show recently with fresh new details and gameplay. Watching it did make me think back to the old days of MGO, but if I'm honest, I never got into the MGO scene myself, so my frame of reference is a little limited. I do remember the sneaking modes and maybe one or two others. I got in the online scene late, so my only experience playing MGO had all of my games be filled with the veterans who had headshots locked in. So I kind of just put that shit into the back of my subconscious, you know what I mean? That kind of worries me that Fox Hunt will be similar. Unless they have good matchmaking, we could be in for a rough time. Anyways, Fox Hunt has two-player teams, but it isn't co-op. It's technically kind of tournament-style battle royale with, like, Capture the Flag and King of the Hill. I don't know, it is a new one. Metal Gear Solid is ready to head into new territory, and I think co-op games are somewhat popular nowadays. There are a few PvE experiences in the past that have had a lot of success. If they kind of translated the single-player stealth into a multiplayer game but put us up against the AI instead of each other, that would be the best stealth game released in a decade at this point. I mean, Ghost Recon is really the only other experience that could be similar, but it's just not as deep as the gameplay of Metal Gear. I don't really consider my gaming status as casual, but PvP in general never really had much of an appeal for me. That's just my opinion. But there have been a lot of PvE experiences that I've had that were just fucking stupid with fun. They usually made the difficulty match the amount of players as well, which is important. Helldivers 2 is it's a big one. I really enjoy the gameplay loop until it gets to just grinding out samples. I really like how the difficulties work as well. Like, you can play solo and technically play any difficulty, but at some point it raises the possibility to complete the mission if you have more players. Thinking back to earlier generations, Splinter Cell had some co-op missions in Blacklist which were spectacular, but I wanted more after completing the mission with my friend. They also cranked up the difficulty for him. It was awesome. And Call of Duty used to have this survival mode where you fought off waves. It probably still does somewhere, but I haven't found it since like Modern Warfare 2 on the 360. But that and zombies used to be my main experience of actually playing Call of Duty. Above all the others though, Peace Walker has my favorite co-op experience to this day. Saying that kind of feels disingenuous, but the more I think about it, the more I think it's true. Not only was the whole game, aside from a handful of missions, playable in co-op, but they had extra ops that were made for co-op. They even had story reasons for there to be more than one player, and they had the cutscenes modified to include all the extra players. You could theoretically complete every mission in the game solo if you wanted as well. The game, as a Metal Gear title, didn't suffer for the addition at all. It was just held back by hardware. If a game like that released now, there would be so many people playing that game, even if it's just to play with their friends. You really put some soul in that thing, and you probably set some records. I think my personal gripe with PvP games is just the fact that you can't rely on the same tricks as the single player experiences. Like, I like to feel like I can plan ahead, but I hate feeling like if I'm a pixel off target or a millisecond behind on my input, then I die. I don't like sprinting everywhere either. I think a lot of games have relied too much on sprint buttons recently, now that I think about it. First we sprint, next it's driving, and that shit's mad boring. You can't even do anything to avoid getting spotted. I'd rather have a horse for stealth gameplay though, just saying. I also just don't feel like competitive always translates to fun. I like immersion in games, that's why I play them for the most part, so it's escapism. I think stealth is extremely immersive, especially in the Metal Gear series. Playing the Snake Eater remake and noticing all of the details in the environment is incredible. I mean, it was incredible in the original. Even Peace Walker had some birds that only sang by a specific map spot. Remember that? You can notice shadows on the ground that tell you where the guards are if you can't physically see them. You can see footprints and animals react to movement or sounds. It almost forces you to focus entirely on your surroundings and audio cues. It's like a horror game kinda, but in a good way, you know what I mean? In PvP, it's near impossible to keep up immersion once an enemy player gets on screen. You can just tell how they walk. You can tell by how they sprint everywhere, or cheese from cover the whole match. It's pretty tough to plan ways to take them out, and even harder trying to figure out ways to sneak past them. Like, I don't know how stealth even could work against players. You just have to be lucky, I think. Even with Fox Hunt, I think only new to intermediate players are gonna fall for the camouflage. I'm sure as people play, they'll be able to spot the camo, and it'll kind of devolve into the run and gun headshot spree they seem to want to avoid. The point being, there's no consistency with online PvP. No real etiquette, you know? No manners type shit. Cooperative gameplay can be exploited with cheats and stuff too, but it's not like you're taking the fun out of other players, so it's better than going up against hackers. I'm not completely opposed to new experiences. I like to keep an open mind. Fox Hunt does look interesting, and I'll for sure give it a good chance. It does look better than I had initially thought when it was announced. It has kind of morphed and taken shape as the months rolled on, and from what has been announced, I am interested in trying it out. It reminds me a bit of Fall Guys with the tournament style elimination thing. I'm also excited that you can get new skins and there supposedly aren't any microtransactions. I don't know, we'll see. I do think the singular game mode is a bit of a bummer, but it's still something. I think if the maps are all smaller size, like the ones that I've seen, they'll probably be easy to learn, making it harder for new players, but I do think the premise is interesting, and the effort is worth some investment. Like, at least they want to make more, and that's huge. The addition of the all-terrain camo is interesting. I understand the usage of it on like a technical level. It basically replaces outfit swapping from the base game with some added texture to help fool real living players, but it feels strange. A little too gamey, but I don't think making 8 different animations of putting on an actual ghillie suit would be very efficient, so touche. I like it way better than the optical stealth camo, but I do like the fatigues. The ghillie suitness of the AT camo probably does help hide better than just a good print on your outfit anyway. I'd like to make this a thought for y'all to stew over. If we are going to discuss more Metal Gear multiplayer stuff, what would you like to see? If I had to think like a developer or publisher, I'd probably look straight at Helldivers 2, like an extraction shooter type thing. I had actually written a whole pitch for an idea like this, but I decided not to do that because I was seconds away from putting up red string like that guy from the meme. The way I called in the chopper on Metal Gear Solid 5, I basically played it like an extraction shooter anyways. If you want a quick breakdown of the pitch, just think like 30 to 45 minute rounds, different camos and biomes, OSP besides a customizable sidearm, the single player AI, and a bunch of maps and difficulties, and you basically get the idea. Personally, I'd rather have like a map the size of the Phantom Pain's Afghanistan, or like 20 smaller maps with a lot of variation. I'm talking like 8 difficulties each and randomized objectives with varying guard and side objectives location that are based off the difficulty.
That's the dream, my gamer.
Just a good old stealth sandbox, complete with your crew, the homies, the day ones.
Put the fear of God in Ghost Recon.
Another idea is just a list of missions to do with a bunch of different maps for co-op infiltration. They'd have to make plenty of variation, especially if they reuse maps for different missions. I like how the MGS games have guards that change with the difficulty, whether it's their positions and routes or their equipment. That's always been one of the coolest things about the game. The camo index was genius too. I seriously love the working camo in Metal Gear Solid. Eat it, Ghost Recon. Your days are numbered, my guy. The main thing is we've had some bad co-op experiences. like Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. What a name. So there are many examples of what not to do. I don't think live service should be the plan. The thing is, people should be making these co-op games to last. Treat them like they're meant to be played for decades. I think a lot of failed multiplayer experiences have something in common. And the few that I mentioned both have that weird taste of live service to it. Like the grind, especially the in-game grind. The gear levels, that weird rarity system. It just feels like you're supposed to play it for years and years for updates or new season content. Like they all have the same Destiny vibe to them. I don't quite understand it, but I never really felt that way in gear-based games like Skyrim or Breath of the Wild or any of the Souls games. And there are definitely rare weapons in them shits. I think Fox Hunt technically covers Battle Royale and therefore most PvP. And I still think Peace Walker Remade should absolutely have co-op just as much a part as the original game. But I do think that more can be brought from online modes than just Metal Gear Hunger Games. I'm stuck on co-op for Metal Gear, and I have hours of reasons why. I see a lot of potential for the game to be just as uniting as it is mechanically in-depth. Technically, I've seen it already. It's the PSP game. With all the mechanics that Snake Eater has, like the camo, the animals, the difficulty variations, and the enemy AI, I think it could easily make a multiplayer military survival stealth game that would just absolutely backbend Ghost Recon. Just straight put it to shame. Make it seem like a crayon drawing. I think the Phantom Pain gave us a peek into what a hostile open world would be for Snake, and Snake Eater showed us that you can make it more interesting by showing what you can populate that world with. I don't really know how I'd feel about a new storyline game. I mean, the one told has a perfect start with 3 and ends with 4. There was Revengeance, which spawned an absolute culture of memes from the petri dish of the internet. But Raiden made the story make sense. There's really no sense in making a new character like another Snake clone or a son or anything like that. There are quite a few holes in the story we have, though. So there is a lot of potential for new entries just in the 1964 to 2014 Metal Gear timeline. That being said, we know nothing about the early years of Foxhounds, so that could be a good premise for the story behind a multiplayer entry. They could potentially tell us the early years of the Patriots before Big Boss started MSF, or more of the philanthropy missions from Solid Snake and Otacon working together. I think we can all agree that stealth is the franchise's, it's the main genre, so being sure to stick with that would probably avoid any unnecessary confusion. In a weird way, the mission structure for the Phantom Pain was the start of my idea. I mentioned it felt like an extraction game when I used the chopper after nearly every mission. I wasted so much GMP. I think the same mission structure, let's take that from the top. I think the same mission structure would be great for a co-op game, which I believe was the intent for the game to have this function to begin with, but somehow changed during production. The mission sizes were fine. We probably don't need to be able to drive vehicles, though. I like maps that are big enough for a sprint button, but not big enough for cars. It'd be okay with smaller zones. The side objectives were amazingly placed, though. That could translate right over. You just need to add some changes based on difficulty, like more side objectives for harder missions, or altered guard placement or equipment, that kind of stuff. Some more opportunities to use co-op skills would be much appreciated as well, like more climb assists or the shared items. A fun thought to entertain is what the story would be. I like to picture a post Ground Zeroes but pre-Phantom Pain era. It's like the prime time for high tension and espionage. Foxhunt is taking down different PFs trying to get nukes or new mechs based off the one's big boss fights. And you could have missions all over the world and mech boss fights like Peace Walkers, legendary soldier fights maybe, and the whole time the Patriots are like collecting data for their SOP system, so there's like this big digital undertone. That sounds super cool, especially if there's some world building like a home base with some mystery stuff to find. The precinct in Ready or Not is the best example of what I'm talking about. Actually, it's a pretty good model too. The mission structure and the multiplayer inclusion. Plus it had training and a relaxing ish home, like a base that you could get some respite between missions. That game's dope. I really like the idea of co-op games. It almost makes people not know how to act sometimes. It's super funny. I've gotten into lobbies with random people in AC Unity and they just leave like as soon as they see me. They probably are just wanting to play with their friends, but it's still funny. I've also had hosts leave a mission a bit after I joined in Helldivers 2, which maybe just says I suck, and physically drain any hope from their body after they see me play. I take the social awkwardness any day over getting spanked in the game by some aggressive gamer trying out some words from Urban Dictionary, though. For real. I'm getting older now. Prefer to reserve my sweaty gameplay for Souls-likes. I like making friends now, so I don't want to be out here shooting my bros. I'm tired of war. I just want peace. With the quote-unquote friend slop genre on the rise and so many people making multiplayer mods for games, I know it's at least worth it to consider creating multiplayer cooperative experiences. You just have to make it good. I love the co-op in Splinter Cell Blacklist, Origami 2. I appreciated the co-op in Far Cry and Ghost Recon. Like, I get why every game can't be like that, but that's the sole reason I keep coming back to those games at all. Just imagining having that co-op ability with an actually good game just tickles my fancy. You know what I mean? I'm joking. Ubisoft does a lot right. They do have some talented developers. I will say I only played Frontiers of Pandora because it had co-op, and that I still have Breakpoint installed only so me and my friend, Singular, can cosplay as Snake and pretend it's a Metal Gear game. But at least they nailed the co-op. It's actually so sick, unironically. How many of us would have played the Great Web? How many of us were suckered into Gotham Knights? Remember that Last of Us multiplayer game that almost came out? These game makers all want us to play together, but somebody's scared. They fear our power, dude. You just have to remember, Konami, difficulty is what makes people play a stealth game like a stealth game. That's why I play high difficulties on stealth games specifically. I'm forced to put a lot more effort into learning the mechanics, and with Metal Gears being so solid, it's worth it. Wait, that was a fucking pun. You literally can't play high difficulty missions solo on Helldivers unless you're like super duper good at the game. You can't just run around in European Extreme, and even on an Extreme, you never wanted to get caught because you died very fast. Watch this video by Nakey Jakey to get a good quick description of stealth specifically, but I think it's possible to make a co-op stealth game for Metal Gear. I think it's a fucking cool idea too. I'd play it all the time. Let me know your thoughts. Konami seems to be willing to put some new content out for Metal Gear Solid, and I think a co-op game with minimum established story additions or changes would be pretty safe, and let them stretch their legs before they build something new, like a reimagining of the MSX games or something. I think MGS has potential to translate into co-op multiplayer easily, bro. Easily, my guy. Like the video if you too want more for Metal Gear Solid, and subscribe. We do fun stuff over here. We're currently playing Peace Walker. It's pretty tight. Anyways, goodbye.